Over the years, I've had many professions and had many opportunities to learn new ways of presenting things. And I'm not a great leader or a great scholar or a great much of anything, except I think I'm a pretty good mother. I think I do tolerably well at that. But still, I keep getting asked to come out and talk about Islam to different groups. Sometimes the groups are a little complicated because I know that they're hostile from the beginning, and trying to find a way to present Islam is delicate, because if you present Islam wrong to people, then you make enemies of them. And since I attempt to be, if you will, an ambassador of Islam when I'm going into these groups of people, trying to give a positive image of Islam, to implant in them a hunger and a desire to learn more about Islam, then my approach becomes very important, besides being very personalized for each group. I was asked to come and speak to the League of Women Voters, which is a very powerful women's organization. These are all women who are very highly educated. They're activists within their community. They're politically active. Most of them are top positions in corporations or businesses. So these are women that you have to be able to approach on an intellectual and still a very highly spiritual way. And I kept asking Allah for guidance. How am I going to talk to these women? I was intimidated by them. Some of them had more education than I did. Most of them have about the same amount of education that I do. But still, they were in positions of power which I've never liked being in. So I'm asking Allah for guidance, and usually when I'm really trying to find a way to do something like this, I put myself in an environment where everything around me is created by Allah rather than created by man. Because when we're surrounded by concrete and buildings and glass and metal and all of this stuff, then we're surrounded by what we consider to be the power of man, and it's hard to break through that connection to find the power of Allah. At least for me, being surrounded by that which is made by Allah assists me in making that transition. So I have a favorite bike trail, and I look for the bike trails because they are accessible to wheels, and wheels are my way of getting around. And there's the Little Miami Bike Trail up in Ohio, so I went up there and was wheeling along the trail, making dua that Allah would guide my tongue and help me to find a way to approach these women, that they would be able then to assist us in some of the efforts that we were making, and that maybe, inshallah, some of their hearts would be moved to Islam. As I was wheeling along, deep in thought, deep in dua, okay, my wheelchair hit a rock. It hit this rock. Now, the interesting thing about when your wheelchair hits a rock, the wheelchair stops, the body within continues on, because we are already traveling at a high speed, and I don't have a safety belt on. So the wheelchair stopped, and I went forward, and I'm laying on the ground with my knees skinned up and my elbows skinned up, and my immediate reaction was, great, I'm asking for help and I hit a rock. I'm human, all right? I get upset. And then I thought, astaghfirullah, I'm asking Allah for help, for guidance, and Allah puts this rock here, and I would question the guidance that He's chosen for me. And so I realized that the truth of it was that Islam is like this rock. Most people, if they saw this rock, would not give it a second glance. Most people, if they are presented with Islam, will not give it a second glance. Most people, if they saw this rock, would not consider taking it home, examining it, learning anything about it. If it got in their way, they'd push it aside. Most people are not interested in examining Islam for what it contains within. If the Muslims get in the way, they'll push us aside. But Islam is very much like this rock, because the deeper you look into it, the more magnificence you will find, the more beauty, the more wonder, the complexities that will delight the mind and eye are all within Islam. So I had my opening. Looking within the rock, you discover that which you never imagined would be. Looking within Islam, people also discover that which they would never imagine to be. And it's up to us to try and make that possible. But we have to make it possible within ourselves as well, because we do not always know what Islam has to offer. And so we look and we find difficulties in our path. We find trouble in our path. We find insurmountable odds within our path. And we don't examine and see what it is that we can gain from that experience. And yet within every difficulty, within every problem that Allah places before us, there is a benefit, there is a beauty, there is a process that will help us to grow and to develop in ways that far exceed what we would have imagined before. As we're dealing with life, a lot of things happen to us sometimes that are very distressing. You know, we'll be faced with illness, we'll be faced with financial loss or loss of prestige or a lot of different things like that. And we will feel sorry for ourselves and we'll complain about them. But if we actually are reading the Quran and Sunnah, we know that anything and everything that happens to us has within it a benefit. And rather than complaining about the ugliness that we are now hit with the hardness that we are now hit with, we need to examine deep inside and see what the experience has to bring to us, to offer to us. Because you may discover that that experience is the greatest experience that you will ever have had. You know, for those of you that read the little book, when I talk about my experience with cancer, terminal cancer, that it was the greatest gift that Allah ever gave to me up to this date. I have no doubt that there are greater gifts that are beyond my wildest imagination. And yet, the knowledge that everything that happens to us is to our benefit, that there's something within it that will help us, will make us better, will make our lives better, help me to benefit from the gifts that Allah was offering. If I hadn't had that knowledge, then I might have felt sorry for myself. I might have been angry. I might have been distressed or disturbed. And see, in our ignorance, our failure to understand what Allah has to offer us, we separate ourselves from Him. We don't know what Allah has to say. We wait for someone else to tell us what it is that we are supposed to believe, what it is that we are supposed to do. We go through a lot of the physical actions without allowing ourselves to be moved in the heart, without letting ourselves to have the spiritual relationship with the Creator of the universe that is supposed to exist. And so instead our minds are filled with suspicion, our minds are filled with pain, our minds are filled with fear. But we are one ummah. We have one God. His message is for all of humanity. His message has so much for us, if we would but look at it.